Hi, everybody. This is Joel with Inflatable Office. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to go over our workers add-on and do a little bit of training for you. So, our workers add-on is $65 a month. And if you want a trial of it, you can email us and we can turn that on, or you can always go over to settings and hit subscription and add it to your account here. So basically, if you click on workers up here, you'll have a list of all of your office and event laborers, and you can manage them all from this screen. So the big picture of what the workers brings to the software is that you can have your office staff each have their own login to the software. They can book events, you can track their commissions, and you can manage their payroll through it. You can give them very specific access to certain parts. For example, if you want them to be able to enter in leads and payments, but not be able to delete things and not look at your total sales or stuff like that, not configure rentals, you can configure each one of those separately. It also tracks all of the things they've changed. So if we go over here to the log tab for each worker, you'll see any emails that they've sent, any changes they've made to events. It'll keep a detailed log of everything they've done. In addition, the people that are running your events and setting things up will each have their own login as well. They will be able to sign up for shifts, request off, kind of manage that whole scheduling thing. If they're wondering, oh, when do I work next? You won't have to answer those questions. You can just say, hey, log into your account and take a look at your schedule. So kind of takes away the burden of you having to tell everybody when they're working and give them updates and reminders, stuff like that. So it also handles the full payroll for both office and laborers, and you can schedule both your delivery staff and your event staffing using the software. So that's kind of the big picture of it. So wanted to go over a few details. So like I said earlier, this is a list of workers. If you want to control which ones are office workers, you'll do that through this permissions tab, and you can grant them access to different parts of the site. So almost everything listed on here is for the back end part of the software where you as like the owner would use. And then at the very bottom is a separate section here that says worker site. And all of those are permissions for what they're allowed to do on the worker site. So the worker site is its own page here. If you click this link, it'll take you over to it. And there's two different views for it. If you're logged in as an office worker, you'll see a little different than other people. But well, to start with, before we get into this, I wanted to show you how to create a new worker. So you can, if you just have a small number of people, you can just hit new worker here and add them yourself. Oh, I logged myself off. Just by hitting new worker and filling out this page. So you'll just need to put in like first name, last name, and a username and password they can use. Down here, you'd mark them to approve yes, and then we'll go over these other details later. So to make them like I said, after you save it, to give them access to the back end, you'll just modify the permissions tab after you've saved them and give them access to what you want. Typically, if they're an office worker, the main thing you need to make sure they have access to is the leads, but you can define exactly what you want. Usually what you do, if they're a general sales rep, is you'll just mark access to everything, and then you can go through and get rid of certain things you want. Like if you don't want them to be able to delete a lead or to delete a payment, you can do that here. Okay, the next way to invite your users to sign up is by using the worker site link. So like I said before, I went over to the worker site and I logged off, and then you can got this link here at the top. You can just copy it, and then you can send an email to all your workers saying, hey, go to this site, click register, and fill out this page. So what happens then when they fill this out, and again, this page here, this is part of the worker site. So generally you're doing this for people that are your laborers and managers, but you can do it for your office workers as well. Then they create their own account. They'll show up under workers, but they won't be approved yet. So to see the non-approved ones, you have to change this filter. They'll all be listed there. And then at that point, you can go in and you can hit edit, and you can mark them to approved if they're approved. You'll be able to set their pay rate, what positions they have access to, their rank, which allows them to sign up for shifts farther in advance than lower rank people, stuff like that. Okay, so we've invited some people, they've signed up. You can configure the permissions tab if they're office workers. Otherwise, for just general laborers and managers, just this approved and this rank are what gives them access. So we've talked, I mentioned a few times positions, so I wanted to go over that real quick. So the positions, so you can set a pay rate per hour for each worker, but let's say that this guy is both a driver and a laborer, and maybe and a manager, and he gets paid a different rate depending on the role he's doing. So you can override his hourly rate by setting a rate here. This rate over here actually overrides the position rate. So you can click on positions and you can set up your different positions, and you can have a different pay rate for each one of those, which if they sign up for a manager shift, they'll get paid a different rate than if they're a laborer shift, for example. And if you wanted to override those for individuals, that's where you can do it over here on this right side. Now, if they're an office worker and you're paying like a sales rep, you can set their commission percentage here based on what leads they're closing. So in order to make these different positions, they have different flags on them. So you'd go to new position. We're going to call this one sales rep. You just need to mark yes for sales rep. The other ones that we have here, vehicle is what you would do for, if you want to define your vehicles for our delivery tool, you would just mark that position as a vehicle. Driver is a way we calculate advanced commissions for our payroll, but we're going to skip that for today. Reporter, this is if you want this person to be able to get the manager surveys. So we have customer surveys that are sent to the customer after the event. We also have manager surveys that can go out, ask for things about like injuries or which items need cleaned. It can, based on how they fill that out, it can take items and check them out for maintenance and notify you of things that need to happen. Contractor, this is if you're paying your employees per item instead of hourly. So if you mark this, it'll use, instead of using hourly rates, it will use, there's a commission amount you can put on each individual item. So I'll show you that real quick. So if we go over to inventory, go to advanced, oops, there's a contractor pay field. So if you put something in there and they belong to a position that's marked as contractor, then it'll use that method of for the payroll report. Okay, a few other details. The overview filter, this is really just for office workers and whether or not you want the overview reports up here filtered to only show stuff that they're the sales rep for, or to show the whole companies. If you have it on, it'll automatically be filtering for things they're a sales rep for. So if they're looking at sales stats, do they want to see the whole companies or by default, or do they want to see just their stuff? That's what that does. So hide unavailable shifts. This is just for people that are like laborers and they're using the worker site to sign up for shifts. If you want them to be able to see other people's shifts or things that they're not eligible to sign up for yet, that's what this controls. Contractor mileage rate is, again, if you're paying them by contractors and you want to also pay them for the mileage that they're driving, that's what this controls. And then this here is, again, for people that are have access to the back end. You can control if they're allowed to edit events after certain days after they're over. Okay. So I know there's a lot here and it's confusing. So we will continue to do these trainings. And if you have questions for follow-up later, we'll be happy to answer them for you. The stuff down here is for if they are an office worker and you want to allow them to send emails through their personal account as opposed to like a company email, you can kind of control how that access works down here. Okay. So the shifts tab is just showing you shifts that laborer signed up for. You can also see those on the individual events by going to the event shift tab as well. But the other location will show you everything that particular worker signed up for. Let's see. So I'm going to talk about the worker site for a little bit. So the worker site is designed for people that are laborers and managers and are going to sign up for their own shifts. So they'll log in to it with their own login. They'll see the calendar of events. I don't have a whole lot on this one. Maybe it's this month. Got a couple in July here. So how it looks is they're just the events, the shifts show up as dots here. The green ones are for ones that they're already assigned to. Red is ones that's not available for them. And blue means they're available to be signed up for. So depending on the permissions you've set for them, you could potentially have it so they can't even see these ones. So I'm logged in as Lazy Joe. He's seeing this Jim Jones one here. If I had turned that setting off to hide unavailable shifts, you wouldn't even see it here. You'd only see his stuff, which is this one. So they can click on these and get a little more info. If he wants to request off, he can. It'll email other workers that are available for this time that also belong to that position, and it kind of manages that all on their own. So if somebody takes the shift, then it'll just switch them, and if they don't, this person is still responsible for it. Here they can get everything else they need access to. You can control if they are allowed to see this stuff or not, again, through that permissions tab. So this is like our built-in calendar, and they can sign up and request off and all that stuff from here. We also can integrate with their own Google Calendar. They can configure that on their own by going to Account in Google Calendar and setting that up. We also have a clock in, clock out feature where they can use this to clock in for it, and we also note their latitude and longitude when they do that. So we can, if you have a requirement that they have to be at the warehouse when they clock in or something like that, we can kind of monitor that. The goal is to eventually roll more of these features into our mobile app. Things like the time clock currently are only done through this worker site. So a lot of this functionality, like signing up for shifts, is again all done through here, but eventually it will make it onto our mobile app for the workers. Right now, I think they can only see their existing shifts, and they can see like the contract and take pictures of the setup and stuff with the mobile app. But for signing up and using the time clock, they have to come to the worker site here. We also have surveys or trainings. So after an event, if they are the reporter, then they will get a manager's survey if you have that email on where they can fill that out. We also have some training features that are part of our software where you can do worker trainings and customize them. So this would be all found under surveys and trainings. There's also a section called safety here, which goes into details on how to set up safety training for your workers. So I'm not going to get into that today, but you can look over this page here and configure, if you want to configure the survey that goes out, or any of the, if you want to add additional custom trainings here, you can do that through here. Let's see here, you go to new survey quiz, and then this is where you can say training on how to set up an event or something like that and make your own custom trainings. So yeah, the next thing I wanted to go over was scheduling. So we have this rank here. So if this person is your best worker and you want them to have full access to sign up for shifts first, you would set them to a higher rank. And then when you're scheduling shifts, they'll be the first ones to be able to see them and sign up for them. And then people that you don't think are as good of workers, but you still need them because you occasionally have huge events that need lots of laborers, you can give them a lower rank and they'll have less time to sign up for that shift. But they'll be able to kind of fill in the spots that are still open if it's 2 weeks out. So that way you can kind of prioritize your best workers and have them be able to sign up for as many shifts as they want. And then the lower priority workers can fill in the gaps. So when you go to schedule for, typically when you schedule for a staffed event, this was a drop off here. Let's, for this test here, we'll just set it to fully staffed. You can use the schedule tab here to create those event shifts. So let's say that I want to have 2 laborers for this event. I'm not going to assign the individual people, so I'm going to leave it open. And I also need, let's say, a manager. So we'll assign the manager and we'll save it. So now these shifts should show up as available for Lazy Joe to sign up for if he wants to. This one wouldn't because I've already assigned it. We also have this indications down here on whether or not they've accepted the position. So since I assigned this to him, I can have an email auto set up to email and say, hey, you've been assigned to this shift, and they can say accept or decline or whatever. And you can see those stats here, as well as on the overview page, we have kind of worker stats on whether they've accepted it or not. You can turn on those emails to go here under Email Center. We have a number of workers' emails down here that you can configure. So scheduling a shift, reminding them of that shift, letting them know when they got paid, texting them a reminder like a few hours before their shift starts. The one I was just talking about would have been a schedule shift. And this is the one where they can say acknowledge, accept, or decline. And if you don't want to have them decline, you can just delete it and just have an acknowledge button there. And then it kind of removes your need to follow up with them and make sure they got everything, because you'll see, oh, these people never responded, so I better call them and make sure. But most of the time, if they click that button, you'll know that they're good to go for that. So generally, we recommend turning on this one and this shift changes one. This one will handle if you modify shifts or if you create new shifts, it'll send them a kind of a summary whenever those things happen, so that you're not having to like send it out multiple times. So I had mentioned just there that we can send out reminders of the upcoming shifts. That's all done automatically. And then we went over the schedule tab here where you can assign the shifts. So let's take a look here and go to the calendar here, and we'll see that Lazy Joe, here's those 2 shifts I created. It's unavailable for him, probably because he doesn't have enough of a priority on it. Yeah, he's got a rank 1. So if we gave him a rank 10, for example, then he would be able to sign up for this shift if he wanted to, because it's only like a month out, and he only has access to sign up for things that are 2 weeks out. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to go over a little bit was our delivery tool. And we have a separate webinar that we've done for this in the past. It'll go into more details, but I want to give you a brief overview of how the workers integrate with this. So we'll go to June 5th. Here we've got our schedule. Let me auto load it. This will be our delivery schedule, and then we can assign who's going to be the drivers and people that's going to go do the setups. So typically, you can assign the staffed events here as well, but it usually makes more sense to do those on each individual lead. But for example, so let's say this box truck has a whole bunch of deliveries to do, and we're going to probably split this into 2, but we have 1 driver that's going to take care of all of those. So we can make a driver shift here, and we can assign it or leave it blank and let them sign up for it. Let's say that they're going to do from 6 a.m. till, oops. We'll do kind of a break at 3 p.m. So we'll do that. 4 p.m. And this, by the way, this blue arrow here will kind of update this availability. So if someone's like not available, you saw it got rid of one of the people. If they are assigned for this driver position and they're not available, they would be showing in red. But anyway, let's go ahead and save that one. So now we've got available shift to do the driver for that. And if we want to add a laborer to it, we just assign another shift. If we wanted to have someone do some warehouse work, you can also do that here, as long as you. So normally if you're scheduling the shift and it's overlapping this delivery schedule here, then they would be assigned to that. But if you assign a shift outside of that range, let's say we're going to have this guy do 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., he's going to clean the warehouse. You can save that shift. And so now I've created a driver shift for this whole one and a warehouse shift for that time. Must have did something wrong on that one. It's supposed to be showing here. Yeah, I have the date wrong. Here now we have a warehouse block that was added. So anyway, from this delivery tool, you'll now be able to schedule your delivery crew from here, and you can schedule your event staffing on the schedule tab of each one. People can sign up for those shifts you've created, or you can assign the workers if you want on your own. We have emails that go out to notify them where they can accept or decline those, as well as notify them of any changes you make to their schedule. So if you created this and they get those emails and accept it, and then the next day you come and you modify the schedule a little bit, which happens all the time, they'll get an update saying, hey, your schedule's changed slightly. And if they're integrated with the Google Calendar, it'll automatically update their Google Calendar with those as well. And then the other great part is that it'll send them email and text reminders a few hours before their shift starts, reminding them. And we had it before when we wrote that a couple years ago, where somebody might start at 6 a.m. and the text would come at 4 a.m. and wake them up, and then they'd be all mad. So we made sure that that doesn't happen. So it those cases, I think it sends it like 15 minutes before or something, so that way they're not getting woken up in the middle of the night, because I think the default is it sends it out 2 hours before their shift starts, but sometimes you don't want to do that. I think I covered most of it. The other things that, I mean, the workers add-on is tied into so many parts of our software. Our IO phone uses it as well, where you can transfer phone calls of a incoming customer to another sales rep. You can set up the filters to automatically route to the right sales rep or the delivery driver. So if somebody's calling the day of the event, you can set up a filter to say, oh, this customer's got an event today. Let's have it ring the driver for that event instead of the sales rep. So our phone system is integrated with it as well. Same thing with our CRM tab. The CRM add-on allows you to see all the communication you've had with your customer, phone calls, emails, stuff like that. And if you've got different sales reps and office workers doing that, it can kind of track everybody's changes. Same thing here on the log tab of that event. You'll be able to see all your different workers' actions and who did it and when, stuff like that. So it's just a great way to keep track of everything. So hopefully that was helpful for you. The workers thing, this is one of the first add-ons that Tim had created back when he wrote the software, and so it's had years and years of development, and there's really just so much to it that I can't cover it all today. So hopefully this helps you get an overview of it and a way to get started with setting up your workers. If you have questions, which I'm sure as you start to use it you will, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can use the help button here at the top. From here you can either ask your question directly here. If somebody's already asked it, you can get your answer immediately. Our knowledge base also has a lot of documentation on the workers thing. If you scroll down, you'll see a whole section about workers and how this stuff works. You can always email us support@inflatableoffice.com. So again, thanks for your time, and hopefully you'll be able to use it soon.